distance learning, hybrid schedules, those type of things. We were also able to partner and provide a lot of Google Classroom training. ACE helped us with that a little bit as well too. And then one of the great things that Andrea and the principals worked on that we've done that really makes parents that want to be in the know aware of what's going on at school every day are the hallway grids, and you can access those directly on our website. So every parent should know exactly what their child's expectations are every day. Next item on there, and I'll have to brag about Andrea a little bit. She's been an amazing addition to our team. It's really great to have somebody in that role that can really just focus on that. So she's not having to worry about anything else. Cindy did a great job, but being able to have Andrea be able to take that over and only focus on that has been great. And it's also been good for Andrea to come in with fresh eyes. Because she has no sacred cows. She has no skin in the game for some of the things that we're doing. So she's able to ask those hard questions, and we're able to really reevaluate what we're doing. Plus, she knows a lot of student teachers coming from Rocky that helps a little bit with that as well. So, just real pleased with her addition to the team. I think we're going to see some big things with her on board. The LEAP plan, last summer we had a long talk about that. That was really our focus last spring as trying to get that ready to go up and on ramp. I will tell you, we haven't implemented that as much as I had hoped. What really has come down to is bandwidth for our teachers and giving them one more thing. Our elementary teachers really don't have a lot of time for professional development this year during the school day. Even though they have, their classes are half the size, it's kind of a revolving door as far as them being in the classroom with the kids 100% of their time that they're here on campus. Ongoing curricular work, we've been able to offer the Building Bridges to all of our staff this year that wanted to take part. We're going to do that again this upcoming summer. That's really grown our collective knowledge as a district. And we've actually started a process of working directly with Dr. Alcock and having her come in when she's here and not just working with ACE, but working specifically with where we're at Lockwood. Some of that is because we've kind of exceeded where some of our peers are in ACE, and so it allows us to be accelerated a little bit more than some of those other districts. We are actually transitioning. Tim and Kat probably remember when we implemented Rubicon Atlas. And that was kind of the big move there at that point, and that they've kind of ceased to update that, and so we're going to work looking at a new program that we're going to move to called Mastery Connect. We feel that it'll be much more beneficial for our teachers and our parents. Really helps with that transition to the standards-based grading that we're in the middle of, and so that's been a real positive. Andrea was also able to work with our rest of our staff and set up some curricular-focused PIR days. Might be some of the best PIR days we've been able to offer. Those were those 2 days that we changed right before Christmas. We're looking at days similar to that in next year's calendar. We think that that's probably less of a burden on parents to do those PIR days at that time. A huge project that I don't think either Andrea or I would have ever dreamed that we would have taken on this year with everything going on, but there are some hidden blessings to COVID, and that kind of opened up one of our weak areas, and so we have actually implemented new reading resources. We opted to go with the CKLA in the second grade through fifth grade levels, and My Perspectives in 6 through 12, and that has a lot of disciplinary resources as well. We've been exploring a few new math resources, trying to get people more consistent with that. Eureka Math and Zlearn are a couple of the ones we're looked at, and those are really coming to us with no cost right now. We're just using the free parts of those. We've revisited and refined our multi-tiered system of support process. Really diving in, we're working with a consultant that works with OPI. And we're able to get with that for no cost. And again, another fresh set of eyes to come in and just take a look at our processes and help us refine those. And it's just like curriculum, it's always about getting better. Montana Comprehensive Literacy Grant, of course, we got funded for that again. That was a lot of hard work. Mr. Chrisman needs to tip his hat on this one. He and Gwen Poole worked really hard on this with the rest of their team. We were awarded a second round. Total right now is $2.45 million over 5 years. Being able to focus on that reading and literacy part of that. We actually received an additional $200,000 since the original award was awarded to us last year. Part of that is ongoing coaching. We pay for Gwen Poole's position out of that. And then we have Frank Smith as our national consultant that comes in for 6 days a month and works with our teachers. Frank also did district-wide CHAMPS training, which is a classroom management system. I could brag and tell you it's worked really great because we haven't had any discipline issues this year, but that might have more to do with the schedule than it does with the CHAMPS training. And the district literacy team has continued their work. That's a group of folks that really work really hard behind the scenes. Probably don't get nearly enough credit, but we have some great teachers on that, and they work their tails off to lead that process. Talked about the curricular materials we purchased. We're approaching about $500,000 in curricular material purchases this year, with the bulk of that coming out of that grant. And one of the other things that goes along with that grant is just the ongoing data analysis. I sat down with Gwen today, and she showed me a new tool that she's using to take a look at what tier our kids were in the fall and what tier they moved to, so we can pinpoint kids that might be struggling. It's real exciting to have people that are that big of data geeks like I am to dive into those kind of things and take a hard look at that. Transformational grant, we're using that. I referenced Better Lessons before. We have 35 teachers that are participants with Better Lessons this year, so they get a mentor that they work with online, a master teacher, and so we've had good success with that. Sometimes it's like anything else, it's really about who you get paired with and clicking with that person, but overall it's been a positive. Early kindergarten, even in a pandemic, we were able to host a class of early kindergarten this year. And then going back to Dawn, giving Dawn credit, the transitioning out of the co-op, I think if you asked our staff, I don't think they would have even noticed it unless we told them we were transitioning out of the co-op. We really haven't skipped a beat. A lot of background work went into that, job description, setting salaries, recruiting, and we were able to keep every single co-op person that was assigned to Lockwood. They all wanted to come here and join our team full-time, and we were able to actually, with the same amount of budget that we were putting into the co-op, add an additional half-time speech path to help out and lessen the load for those folks. Dawn, anything you want to add as far as the special ed side of things? A couple other things that Dawn deserves a lot of credit for is, the ranch came to us just after Thanksgiving last year and told us that they wouldn't be able to provide CSCT services anymore at the first of the year. And so we were able to switch on the fly to Aware, and that's, I believe, a positive move for us. I think they've provided us with really good service, better staffing than we've had as far as consistency with staffing than we had under the previous program. On-site summer school, we had big plans last year. Of course, those got put on hold. We were still early in the COVID pandemic situation. And this year, we've, with the monies that we've been able to get from the federal government, we've got pretty big plans for an expanded program this summer and next summer. Right now, we're actually looking at 3 sessions, a June, a July, and an August session for kids, depending on what their needs are. So anything that they've fallen behind academically over the last year, we believe we have the resources and the ability to help those kids get caught up within a reasonable time frame. A couple other things to highlight on there are social emotional support resources. The Why Try program is one that we've brought in to try and work with kids. And then Second Step, those are some things we really have put a focus on trying to do some like restorative justice and giving kids support rather than just disciplinary penalties, those type of things as we move forward, trying to help them learn to be better citizens and neighbors rather than just doing the disciplinary type thing. And so that was kind of put on hold a little bit. Like I said, we really haven't had a lot of discipline this year. With the limited days of school, we've really cut down on suspensions. We've really tried to avoid that at all costs. So another one of those blessings, I guess, with COVID is we were able to get to one-to-one with our Chromebooks in grades 3 through 10 through some of that extra funding that we were able to get. Obviously, it was a need during the situation with kids working from home, but that was a goal that we had. We were looking at 3 or 4 years down the road. We were able to accelerate that. Hiring a school staff. This is one I don't know that people pay enough attention to. We have 36 new certified staff members on our campus this year. So it's not just the high school, it's the co-op folks, it's Andrea, it's Mike Erickson. And so to put that in perspective, I went back and looked, and that's more certified staff members that we hired this year than we still have on this campus that were here 10 years ago. Does that make sense? So we have less than 36 people that have been here for 10 years or more, and 36 people that this was their first year. So ongoing leadership coaching. Myself and our admin team, we have been working with Dr. Randy Russell. Randy's real inspirational, great person to come in and just give feedback and kind of coach us as we help coach our teachers. You guys each got a copy of his book, The Three Ships. And then the last couple things I have on there is we have actively been working with the JROTC program. I know that was kind of a long shot when we started this high school thing, but I think that it's something we're going to get done. Right now, they can't travel at all, so they have to come and see our facilities and stuff. That's the next step once they get cleared to travel. And then we actually have our first couple students that joined the Montana Youth Challenge. And just another great thing about being a smaller community, we do have a fairly high-ranking member of the National Guard on our staff that is working with those kids and helping mentor them while they're at the Montana Youth Challenge. So that's that section. Is there any questions on anything on the curriculum, instruction, assessment section of that? That's the total. Honestly, Joe, we did not add any this year. I think there's just been so much other training going on and so forth. The other thing is we kind of used a classroom set of Chromebooks as an incentive. So if they got Google certified to the second level, they'd get that set. I think she did it before we met last July, though. So we kind of held that as an incentive. So we might have to find a different incentive now that we are one-to-one. So we'll brainstorm with Darlene and try to figure out what the best way to do that is. yeah. You don't get a charger until you. So, all right. If there's no questions, I'll move on to the next segment. That's the students, family, community. The goals under this are to provide value-added resources to our community, encourage active involvement of families in student learning, focus on staff and student mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Again, kind of going back to the COVID thing, the regular communication with county health, I can certainly tell you that has dominated a lot of my time and a lot of Dawn's time. County, weekly calls and follow-ups and getting their advice on different things as we've worked our way through this. We continue to work on the community clinic, trying to partner on something like that to bring it to our community here in Lockwood. Hope Squad implementation. I think some of you sat in when I presented on Hope Squad at MCEL. They're actually looking at a couple other districts in Montana are going to expand into the Hope Squad, so it's good. That worked out well, getting more people involved with that. Additionally, the partnership with myparentguidance.com, that would be, I've been doing this for 20 years, and the biggest shock out of this pandemic for me was how many parents rely 100% on the school for their children's mental health supports. That's a lot on our counselors, and so we're trying to find some additional resources that we can help parents out with those type of things. So we partnered with the parent guidance group. We hosted the family mental health night. I am working with the Cook Center, which is kind of their oversight group, to try and look at some other ideas that they might have that we can provide more resources for our community. And they actually partnered on our first Tough Topics was on mental health, and they partnered with Teresa and the folks that she had set up for adult ed for our first topic this year in January. Principal advisory committees, this is the number one place for parents to give input into what's going on in their children's schools, to have those conversations directly with their principals and what their concerns are there. It's a more informal situation where they can sit and have conversations and kind of find out more about what's going on and why it's going on. We continue working with Healthy Is for our staff to provide them with incentives to stay healthy and some tools to do that. Work with No Kid Hungry, trying to provide breakfasts and other meals for students that may be falling behind with families that may be struggling for financial reasons. This year, obviously, that's been an extended concern. Jump down a little bit, the adult education, obviously that's been a huge change to COVID. We can't bring a whole group of people in, have 25 people in the library or a conference room, so they've kind of transitioned that to the Zoom meeting type stuff, and which is, I believe it's working well. Teresa's been positive about it. Talked about attendance visits, meals. One thing I'm very proud of is there is no need for any family in Lockwood to ever go without as far as meals, coats, backpacks, school supplies, shoes, you name it. We have a way to make sure that happens. Dawn works really hard on that with our grants. And we created the position, the community resource specialist, and Tana's out there making home visits every day. And so that's something that, I'd say one of the things I'm most proud of us doing as a district. Online student registration, that's been huge. Just to clarify, when people come in and they get stuff, they're inputting all their own information instead of having to re-enter it. Saves us time, but it also helps make sure that stuff becomes more accurate. It used to go to the secretaries, and then we started the registrar program. So that was a big transition this year for the business office, for Deanne in the business office. Inaugural high school activities. We had our first play in here about 2 weeks ago in this room. Wrestling, we had hosted our first wrestling match that same weekend. Our kids went to speech and debate for the first time this last weekend, and we had our first state placer, 6th place, I believe. Gordon, was that right? Correct. Yeah. So Seth Hirschkorn's built a great program there. I mean, how many do we have? 5 or 6 that qualified for state? 5 that qualified for state the first year or second year with all freshmen and sophomores. So, what was that? So, this is one of those ones that, some people may look at this as a positive, some people may not, but we were able to keep all of our activities going despite COVID. That was a decision we based off of some of the feedback from parents and, the mental health concerns we were hearing about kids and stuff. I do know that there's push that, activities is a place where it's being spread, but for the mental health of our kids, it's been a lot of effort to keep those going, and we've had probably fewer disruptions and shutdowns and canceled games than some of the other districts or schools that we've played. Myself and the rest of the staff, the administrative staff, we went through a framework for understanding poverty training last fall. That's the Ruby Payne work, if you're familiar with any of that type of stuff. I am actively working with the county commissioners, hoping to get them to twist MDT's arm a little bit on changing the speed limit and the speed zones and the times out here. I'll share that letter with you guys for the next board meeting in my report. This next one's one that, a lot of people might not even think of, but it's been huge. It's been great for our campus, and it's been great for our partner, is the change in the physical space for the Boys and Girls Club. They rave about that. It's certainly been less disruptive in our buildings, and been a real positive to give them a space where they're separated a little bit more so that they can actually run programs with this half-day schedule we have currently going for our younger students. And then another big one is with again, one of those, silver linings is we did add online access to library materials, both in the middle school and the high school. So there's ebooks and several other different items available that can be checked out through our library off of the website rather than actually having to come in and physically get a book. So, any questions in that section? Yeah, and I would say that aware comes from the top down. I can tell you, their supervisor, anytime there's any kind of issue or any concern, we pick up the phone and Wallace is out here like that. He's really good about, they need to follow our schedules and our type of thing, and we didn't always have that. So, yeah, the aware relationship's been real positive. So resources, maximizing our financial resource utilization. We already talked about the literacy grant. At the next board meeting, we'll have our audit report. Tony from Whipley will be here. Again, spoiler alert, it's 100% clean audit. That's, as long as I've been here, the 8th one I know of, and I think that predates me being here with Lori as the business manager, so absolutely no findings in any of our audits. So we talked about some of the positives with the COVID and maybe the silver linings. One that is a negative is the grants received. And, I think we're blessed with Don and the amount of grants he's been able to get over the last 4 or 5 years. That is way down. Some of that is companies have backed off on grants during this situation, but also some of it is just time in the day. Don he's our linchpin for our contact tracing and our record keeping with the COVID situations. And so he's spending more time on that, which gives him less time to write grants and focus on that. And so, I would tell you that number is much smaller than it's been in the past. But it's kind of a combination of those two factors, that there's less grants available, and Don does not have the amount of time to dedicate to writing grants as he's had in the past with the contact tracing and whatnot. Now, I know you submitted several here just in the last few weeks. Don, do you want to touch base on that a little bit? Been working with Mark Qualman and Quest on our facilities audit. That should be ready to go this spring. Really, the construction on this high school, the punch list stuff has kind of drug out a lot more than I think we expected it to. I know Mark's kind of starting to lose his patience with Langlis a little bit. Langlis, you would think, would want to do it because it just costs them more money every time. We haven't paid them for quite some time at this point, and it seems like every time they kick the ball down another week, we find 5 or 6 more things. I've got 2 pages worth of stuff to go over with Mark in the morning of stuff that we need to have him come out and take a look at. So, so that facilities audit's taking a little bit longer than expected to, but we'll have it this spring, be able to plan for next fall. Joint Powers Trust, work with them. That's our health insurance. I'm the chairman of that board, and we've done a lot of work to try and keep our health insurance costs down. I would say the last 5 years, our increases have been probably half of what they were prior to that. We've been able to and some of that's due to like things like Healthy Is and those type of things that we've been able to work with our staff to just be more healthy and be more proactive on stuff rather than reactive. And then another thing that I'm super proud of with all the construction stuff is we've been able to stretch that bond out to address pretty much all of our needs district-wide. We can start kind of putting money away into our building reserve in case of something happening. We've pretty much gotten to the point where most of our preventative maintenance has been done. We'll have that audit coming up pretty soon, but we've been able to address flooring in the other buildings. We've redone the roofs, parking district-wide, a lot of different things. The remodel of the first grade, I don't know how we would have had classes in that area this year without having that remodel in the first grade, that little maze area. We're going to do some upgrades to the Boys and Girls Club area to kind of keep the noise down and make that a little bit more secure. But we've been able to do a lot of those things with that same amount of money. One of the things that makes my life a lot easier is I transitioned all the transportation to Melissa. She's been top flight as far as learning that software and taking over that process. The great thing with that is she can be more responsive. She knows that those 2 hours in the morning or in the afternoon, when the bus drivers are going to be in and out, she can be available with them to go meet and those type of things. So for me, I might have had a different meeting and I might not have got to that disciplinary write-up or that conversation with that bus driver till the next morning or even lunch the next day. And so with Melissa, she can be a lot more responsive, and she's just done a great job with that. I don't get to drive around the community as much, though. I don't get to go out and check out bus stops and those type of things. She's the one doing that now. So I'm going to say 2 words that those of you that have been on the board for a while will understand. Other people might not get. Stonehaven Drive. I think we've sorted out all the legal issues with that and our next door neighbor. That's been a headache since I've been here. So we've added new office staff, transitioned to new office staff. We've added new nursing staff. We were able to utilize some of the COVID monies that were available to add additional nursing staff. We set up the beverage agreement with Coca-Cola. We've created partnerships with our facilities, to use our facilities with some other organizations in the greater Billings community, the Billings Symphony Orchestra, Montana State University Billings, Billings Catholic Schools, Yellowstone Christian College. So we are building some of those relationships going forward. An unforeseen challenge we had with COVID is revenue for student activities. One of the things we did when we designed this was we were hoping to get quite a bit of revenue, especially so we could keep the costs down for activity fees and those type of things by selling concessions and gate and those type of things. Well, obviously, when we have to have limited attendance, that hurts the gate, and then you throw in the fact that we haven't been able to sell concessions this year. So a couple other things that we've done through student activities to kind of get a little bit of revenue coming in is the coffee shop that's part of the FCCLA classes, the FACS classes, and they're also doing t-shirt printing. So we've sold a couple $1,000s worth of Lockwood t-shirts already with our logo on it that was trademarked so that we would be the ones that controlled that. I completely revised the boardroom section of the website. I think it's a little bit more user-friendly, at least I hope it is. And did that myself rather than paying somebody else to do that. We've used the COVID funds, the CRF funds, and now the ESSER funds to add some full-time substitutes. We'll have 2 more to add next week, as I said earlier. And then pretty cool partnership, and Mr. Kinsey, maybe you might want to talk a little bit about that, is the partnership with Q2, If You Give a Child a Book, where every student in the intermediate was able to get several books from one of their partners.
You probably ought to use the mic so the camera picks you out.
I'd love to tell some jokes or something. So we had a lady we had a lady that did pet therapy with us, volunteered her time, brought a dog out and was doing pet therapy with us. And she still does it, but she went to Q2. And so when she went to Q2, they raised money for a school, and she nominated us to do it. And every kid in our school got 3 books, and then our teachers got so many books that went along with it. So it was a great win for our community and school.
Any questions on the resources section?
Well, it's really for the board.
Okay, so the next section is advocacy. Encourage board, student, staff involvement in community, regional, and state organizations. You know, I don't want to sound like I'm tooting your guys' horn, but you know, we have probably the most well-educated school board in the state of Montana. When you take a look at the continuous Golden Gavel Awards, you didn't even put it on the list because just take it for granted now at this point. I apologize for that. You guys were awarded the Mass School Board of the Year this year as well. And then Pam became, I believe, our 4th trustee to receive the Marvin Heinz Award. So that's just shows the commitment that our school board has and the amount of time that you guys put in. And as a superintendent, I'm very thankful for that. Just a couple things for myself, things that I've involved with I mentioned JPT being on that board there. I'll tell you that if you'd have told me when I first got on that board, I was not in my world trying to learn about insurance. I just wanted to try and become more knowledgeable about it. It's actually our 2nd largest expenditure, so I wanted to be more knowledgeable about it. If you'd have told me 6 or 7 years ago that I'd end up the board chair, I would have thought that was crazy because I was completely lost. I was selected this year, or asked this year, to be the vice president of the Montana Rural Education Association. So that's one of the big alphabet organizations in Montana. And so I've been on that board now, I think, quite a while, 6, 7 years probably, and I'm now the vice president. And then, you know, I was really shocked and honored at MCEL to be selected for the G.V. Erickson Award. I'm not bragging, this is exactly how it's listed on there. Most honored award a school administrator in Montana can receive. I was even more blown away when I went back and looked at the list of past winners. A lot of people that I really look up to be on that list with them that's a career achievement for myself. I still serve as the Montana representative on the AASA governing board, and I'm kind of the ranking member on that board now from our state. Ron Whitmoyer and Jewel Walker were on there for a long time, and for me to be the veteran there now, that's a little surreal for me as well too. I was asked to sit on the Hope Squad National Advisory Board, so there's a group of school personnel, administrators and teachers that sit on that and give them advice on the aspects on that nationwide. That's a pretty big honor too. And then I was just asked here in the or officially named to the Montana Early Childhood Advisory Council. So I represent all the school districts in the state of Montana on that council, the governor's council on that. Presented at MCEL on the Hope Squad. I've been taking part in the AASA Early Learning Cohort, which I received a scholarship for, so that's not costing us anything on that. Our staff involvement has been amazing as well too. We have, you know, strong involvement in pretty much any of the alphabet organizations, you know, whether it's the principals organizations, the athletic directors organizations, gifted and talented, ASCD, MASBO. So Dawn Chrisman was actually named to the National Policy and Legislative Committee for the Administrators of Special Ed, so the Special Ed Administrators Organization. Lori Nooncaster, and I go back to, I didn't probably give Lori enough credit on the last part on the resources, you know, as far as the clean audits and those type of things. One thing I love about Lori is flexibility is one of the things I really believe in our budgeting, and Lori does a great job with that and making sure that we squeeze everything we can out of every penny we have to make sure that it gets to our students. So, but Lori also is a trainer and presenter for MASBO. She's one of the veteran clerks in this area and really helps out. I know oftentimes you'll be in her office and she'll get a call from another school district looking for advice on different things and stuff. And then she also sits on OPI's K-12 data task force. Darlene was actually just named to the Meta Board of Directors, so she's our regional director for Meta, which is the technology expert, or technology, what's the word I'm looking for, Darlene? Directors, Technology Directors Association. And then Andrea, she is the president of the Montana Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. And then she also presented at MCEL on standards-based grading. And then she sits on Rocky Mountain College's advisory board. So that's a great link for us, between us and higher ed, and getting student teachers and practicums and those type of things. Mike Erickson is the president of the Eastern Ag Conference, and then some of our newer administrators are actually involved as well. Rob and Nikki are both part of the SAM Leaders Professional Learning Program, which is where they're paired with a veteran mentor to help them kind of get adjusted to those new roles that they're in. We have a strong relationship with our legislators. You know, we had several, I don't know how many total, probably 6 or 7 legislators here at the grand opening. Hear from those folks quite often. Great relationship with OPI. I've talked to Superintendent Artson a couple different times in the last week. I served on the OPI Flex Task Force last spring. And then also a great relationship with the county superintendent and with the county commissioners. It's you know, like the speed limit thing, they didn't even have to put on their agenda. We just sent it, they saw it was from Lockwood, and they basically said they would support it. So that's relationships that we've been able to build. And that's not just me, that's you guys as trustees and our administration team and our teachers and everybody. So any questions on the advocacy side of things? All right, next section is climate. Focus on safety, security, facility needs, foster positive professional relationships between staff, administration, trustees based upon mutual respect and open communication, build school community and civic pride. So some things that I identified in this area was, you know, one of our long-term goals, probably since I started here, was to get a full-time school resource officer. And Deputy Senate's been great to work with. He is part-time right now, just temporarily, because his wife recently had a baby, so he's enjoying some paternity time. Ongoing safety upgrades. We talked about some of these earlier with resources, but we did upgrade all the cameras and intercoms district-wide. We upgraded all of our campus radios, including a new repeater that we put in, so that you can get a hold of Mark's guys or the janitors anytime you're anywhere on campus. Volo ASAP, that is an active shooter type program that we download on our phones to give us where things may be happening, respond quicker. It actually partners with law enforcement, so if there's something happens on our campus, they can see where things are happening. When you got a 60-acre campus, those type of things become important. Leadership team process. I think this is something that maybe I took for granted a little bit before we started working with Dr. Russell. You know, we've added 2 new principals, an athletic director and a curriculum director in the last year or so. And one thing Randy talks about with his coaching is if you have a new player, you have a whole new team. And so you have to start building those relationships over again and those type of things. And so that's actually been something that's probably taken more time now that I sit and think about it than we maybe attributed to it when we started that. And keep in mind, we will be probably adding 2 additional as we go into next year with a alternative ed director and an assistant principal in the high school. Consensus bargaining, one of the best things I've ever done in my career. I can't tell you going through COVID how impossible this situation would have been if we didn't have the relationships we have with our unions, with our employee unions. It's not adversarial at all. It's about problem solving and working together. A lot of times it's always been this way, but I don't think that a lot of schools or unions look at it this way. Our employees' issues are our district's issues, and so it's great to be able to sit together and work that out and not play Texas Hold'em when it comes to negotiations and those type of things. We were supposed to negotiate last spring. We were just getting ready. We actually scheduled our first session for the week after we got shut down with COVID. And so we're able to work with both groups to put together memorandums of understanding, and we're getting ready to start negotiations. The pairs have actually approached me about doing a 2-year MOU, keeping the language the same, and just looking at salaries and benefits. So if you go back to where we were with that group 5 years ago, it's a day and night. The folks we have working with us now they're amazing, and they really want to do what's best for kids, and it's appreciated on both sides. As we've had our COVID meetings and conversations, union folks have sat right there and been part of those conversations all the way through, so they understand what's going on. Talked about the intermediate school flooring project finish, primary remodels, middle school upgrades. You know, I don't know we wouldn't even be able to have a conversation about trying to go back to school more if we wouldn't have made those adjustments to the lunchroom in the middle school. With the commons the size it was before we expanded into the old music room area, I don't know how you could ever talk about having 450 kids cycling through 3 lunches. We'd have to start lunch at 9 a.m. and finish at 2 p.m. to get everybody through. So some of those type of things have been a real positive. Couple other things that I had, you know, Mike has also been a blessing, just very knowledgeable as an athletic director, great reputation with officials, with coaches, with other school districts. He's a dynamo as far as getting stuff going and getting things done. You know, the branding packages, he's taking that over. Put in a lot of time working with KGHL. Not many JV volleyball and basketball players and football players get their games announced on the radio. Our kids have been able to have that. We kind of finalized over the summer, you know, almost over $400,000 in sponsorships with the scoreboards that can go back into our activities programs. Mike went through and helped update all the facilities use agreements with the additional facilities. Obviously putting together the COVID plans for teams coming and spectators and those type of things. Continue to have a great relationship with our largest taxpayer, ExxonMobil. Dan Carter was actually our opening day speaker on this stage, helping us welcome our teachers back. Did a great job. Be the Rock was kind of his theme, and then one other one that one of the principals reminded me about is the BARK program that we have with parents, so parents can be notified of any kind of online negative activity that their children are taking part in if they sign up for that. So, any questions on anything in that section? We've got an amazing team. I mean, it's almost overkill at times. I mean, I truly believe that I would put our admin team, and when I say admin team, that includes Darlene with technology, that includes Mark with facilities, that includes Melissa with but I would certainly put our admin team up against any school district in the state. I just think that we have people that bring a lot of knowledge and then, again, commitment to do whatever needs to be done to do what we believe is best for our students. So, the last part of this is kind of the board designated areas that you guys gave me to focus on last summer. Educational growth in light of the COVID and where we're at on that. And, you know, obviously that's been the elephant in the room, and we talked about a lot of these. I'm just going to kind of read what I wrote here. This has been the elephant in the room, provided a lot of professional development and resources for staff, became one-on-one with Chromebooks, grades 3 through 10, purchased hotspots for families without home internet. About $130,000 were spent on Chromebooks, $45,000 on the home internet. We hosted question and answer sessions with staff and parents prior to school starting. We've been working hand in hand with county health officials. Our admin team, we're all deputized county health officials. That was kind of when we were in the midst of the contact tracing. I can tell you, you know, both these principals out here and I have had conversations on the weekends when they were in the building doing contact tracing because we found out a kid tested positive and we needed to let those parents know that night. We were the first district in the area to start testing our staff with the Binax tests. Don's an expert at those now. He can pretty much look at you and tell you if you're positive or not with COVID. We've kept any at-school transmissions to a minimum. I believe there's probably one transmission that happened here at school that we can trace back to, but other than that, I think we've done a great job, and that was just kind of a unique situation. All the policy and plan works that have gone into that, these plans are changing. We're going to have an update for the plan next week for you guys to take a look at. We did approve, thank you guys for approving the face coverings beyond the state and county regulations. I think it's been huge. I think our staff's been real appreciative of us making sure that we have a safe work and learning environment for them and for our students. We did provide the additional COVID leave to our staff beyond the family leave that was in place last spring. We are working to try and safely transition to a more traditional schedule. And like I said, we'll talk about those things next week. We've been able to leverage our additional funding to create long-term benefits. That's one thing we've talked a lot about is we didn't want to make investments in things that we would only use for 6 months or 3 months or however long we thought COVID might last. We wanted to make sure we were doing things that were going to be, there'll be some of that with masks and that, but huge investment. So like the hot spots, that's something that we can certainly utilize with our families that don't have internet even beyond COVID to try and close that homework gap. Ongoing planning for summer school sessions and after-school tutoring programs. And I would tell you one thing with COVID, and I know we've been getting criticism in the community and on social media and those type of things because we're the only district in the area that's still on hybrid. I can't jump up and down and tell you that what we're doing is perfect, and I won't. But I will also tell you that I sit in on conference calls and webinars with districts that have, 50 people in central office. Fairfax, Virginia, Miami-Dade, Clark County, Nevada, Chicago, LA County. Nobody knows what they're doing is right. There's no right answers right now with COVID. And so you got to try and find what fits your community and your facilities and your resources the best. But I'll tell you, if there's mistakes that have happened, it's not for lack of research or hard work or for having our students' best interest at heart. And that's not just me, that is our whole team. But again, this is, if anybody tells you that they have the right answer for running school during a pandemic, watch out, because their next thing they're going to do is try and sell you some seafront property in Nebraska. Any questions on that item? Okay. Show improvement on Smarter Balance testing. Smarter Balance is the state test. So that test was actually suspended by the state and feds last spring, and it sounds like it will be again this year. There's some fairness situations when kids aren't in school or don't have access. We do monitor our AIMSweb data closely, and the AIMSweb is our formative assessment that we use to measure academic growth. I am absolutely pleasantly surprised by where our AIMSweb scores are this year. I quite honestly, I'm a little shocked, and that needs to be given credit to our staff, our teachers and our principals and all the work they've done, and our paras as well. Our teachers have monthly or biweekly grade level dependent discussions on what's going on with our students' academic, the reaching out, the goal setting, the progress monitoring. There's a hot link in that document, if you guys have your computers there, to that Andrea's put together some of that data. We just finished up last week, so I got to thank Andrea for putting that data together over the weekend. Do you want to go to the mic, Andrea, and talk a little bit about that data and walk them through that a little bit?
Yeah, so we use AIMSweb as a progress monitoring tool. So kids typically in a normal year would take it 3 times in the fall, winter, and spring. And we want to track that data with our teachers really down to the student level. So what you're going to see put together for you is big picture data. And I had 2 goals when I was pulling that data. So you're going to see in your packets what looks like a line graph. And that's tracking our data across the last 4 data points we collected. And there's a report for math and a report for reading. So the point of pulling the data and looking at it that way was to see when we were in school in 1920, fall to winter, we came a full day, everything was normal. And I wanted to see what kind of gains did we make with kiddos when we were here full days and things were normal. And then the second 2 data points on each graph show you what happened this year in the modified schedule from fall of 20 to winter of 21. And you can see that at every single grade level for math and for reading. And just as like sort of the big picture summary of that report, fall of 19 to winter 20, so last school year when things were completely normal, in math, our kids district-wide made a plus 2% growth into the green. And we lost 2% of kiddos into the red. So when you look at those, you want to see the green lines trending upward, and you want to see the red lines trending downward. So compare that to overall what happened this fall to winter when our kiddos were here in a modified schedule. What we saw was plus 5% growth in green in mathematics and 2% decline into the red. So what we saw in math was actually we had really good instructional performance even though the schedule wasn't a normal school day. So again, I think that's a real tribute to our teachers and their focus this year. What we saw big picture in reading, during the 1920 school year, we saw a 6% increase into the green and 5% decline in the red. And then this school year, with again the modified schedule, we saw 4% growth into the green and again a 5% decline into the red. So what that shows us is that instructionally, we have been able to accomplish what we did the year prior. Now, that's not to say the model we're in is the best thing since sliced bread and we should do it forever and ever. It's just to say we don't need to worry that our kids are really losing ground. So that's what you're going to see in those 2 reports. And then you're going to see 2 other reports that look like this. They're bar graphs. What you have here is reading data and math data for every single class we have on Lockwood's campus right now. So, for example, this one right here is math data. This is the class of 2023, so our current sophomores. And you can see their last 4 data points. What we want to see when we look at this report is we want to see the green getting bigger. The yellow can stay about the same. You're never going to see huge changes there because a lot of times our kids moving out of the red are moving into the yellow. And then you want to see the red getting smaller. So that's an indication that when you look across the last 4 data points, in this particular example, our kids are ahead of where they started. They're doing just fine. What we thought we would see in math, especially what we're seeing nationwide, is about a half-year decline. What we see when we look at our data is we're not seeing that. So there are definitely pockets of concern and things we're digging deeper into in terms of making good recommendations for summer learning. I can tell you today I pulled 2 particular students' individual level data. We've got one kiddo who's 2 years ahead in math because she did remote learning, and we were able to connect her with a resource that helped her keep moving. We have another kiddo who is on the verge of AP, making great growth in the class he's in this year. I'm pulling all the remote learning data by classes to look for trends for how students are performing and see how this is affecting those kiddos. And ultimately, what we want to do and what we work with our teachers to do is they should know where the kids in every single class are in terms of, are they green, yellow, or red? We should know who's who by name and know how to support all those kids in continuing to grow. So if you have any questions for me once you start looking at it, I'm happy to answer. 2 next steps. One is I'm going to go back to 2019 19, I think, in the spring would be the last time we took the SBAC. And I want to start to do some correlations between how our kids performed on Ames Web and how that might be predictive of their performance on SBAC. And then we get to take the pre-ACT with our sophomores this year, so also looking at the correlations between those two data points. So we have a good idea of how our kids are performing based on the data we're collecting. Yes. Yep, it's every sophomore we have on campus, every freshman we have on campus, yep.
Just on campus or the remote learning also?
Remote learning also. Yeah, sorry, that was kind of, I misspoke on that, but yeah, it's everyone.
Okay, and then the question is, if I understood you correctly, you're going to pull the same data points with the on-site and the remote?
Correct. Yep. And what I'm doing, and what I'm seeing so far in the remote learning classes I've pulled is actually about 2/3 of the kids are performing really well. And then it's looking like about 1/3 of the kids are struggling more. And we want to really be ahead of that and try to make some good recommendations for summer programming. Yeah.
So these percentages that you're showing, the green, the red, the yellow, is that the percentages just for our district? That 80% is in the green, 20%, or is that, and are those numbers then coming from like a nationwide number? So we're still at 80%, but is it because everybody has decreased, so we're still 80% of the nation? Or are we truly saying that here's the same standard that we set for the sixth graders last year is the same standard for this year, and we're still at that point?
Correct. Yeah. Yep, it's a nationally normed test, but they don't do renorming based, like they didn't do renorming based on the pandemic. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Like I said, these numbers are hot off the presses. Andrea spent the weekend getting those numbers put together for tonight, so I wanted you guys to have that. She will actually be diving into those with Gwen and our other instructional folks, and she will be giving a longer, more detailed presentation at the March board meeting. So those numbers. Thank you, Andrea. So any questions on the SBAC part of the goal setting there? Obviously, we don't have SBAC scores, but we're fairly confident that we're still doing a good job. The LEAP implementation, as I said earlier, this has kind of been on hold. We're kind of ramping it up here second semester. Principals kind of just presented it. We put it out there to the teachers. We didn't want to stress them out and give them one more thing with everything else going on back in August. So we've been kind of dialing it up a little bit here as we go. Each of the principals is working on a goal in each of those focus areas that they're going to present to me here in the next week. And then we've asked the DLT to really start diving into that and taking a look on how they can support and what they want to keep track of on those things. So, any questions on the LEAP situation? Okay. Adult education, communications. You wanted me to continue the weekly update and work on improving the usability of our school website. Again, this is one that I probably have dropped the ball a little bit on. Obviously, I've been continuing to do the weekly updates and added some extra information to those as we go forward. Our website work has really mostly focused on academic supports, the hallway grids, those type of things that we talked about earlier. We do have staff, so we have a person that's not able to work on campus. And one of the jobs we've asked them to do is just get on the website and go through and navigate it and look for any dead ends or sites that don't work quite right. And then she'll contact Darlene and we'll get those fixed right away. This second semester, we'll refocus on some other improvements, including updating the photos on there. That's one of the most common things I hear is that we need to get photos on there of the new facilities. Any questions on the communications for adult ed? Okay. Adult education classes. The financial education was one that you guys had made a priority, and then talked about the tough topics and be able to expand that. We just recently started the tough topics Teresa and Tanner are kind of the ones that head that up, and they felt like it was better for the spring. I think they were also kind of hoping that we might be back in person more and be able to have people there. I'm disappointed to hear there's only 5 or 6 people, Joe said at the last one. The March meeting, just prior to tax time, is financial literacy. So we've got that coming up here soon. Any questions on adult ed? So the next one was connecting with area partners to align on dual credit and job training. Some things you guys had identified. Tech math is progressing. That will be offered next fall. We've touched base with Lockwood Fire about trying to set up EMT classes. That's probably more realistic for the fall of '22, is where Gordon thinks that that's going to be able to be done. We've met with the statewide Skills USA about getting that program up and running. We've been doing a lot of work on Educator Rising, which is a pre-teaching program. I think we're going to be able to partner with our local colleges on that for our kids to get some credit as they do that and help grow our next generation of Lockwood teachers there. BPA is up and running. DECA was one that we'd identified. That's kind of on hold. It's also a business one, and we've kind of chosen to go with BPA. FFA will depend on our candidates that we have this spring to hire for our other shop position. We have it advertised as an ag position and as a woods position to try as we phase those in. And so if we get an ag person, we'll probably be able to jump right into VOAG sooner rather than later. But if our better candidate this year is a woods person, we'll probably go with that, and then FFA will be pushed off another year probably. We talked about FCCLA and some of the things that they're doing. Ashley Cost does a great job with those girls or those kids, I should say, and they've got a great group of kids that want to be here early every morning and sell coffee and be involved in that. So they're kind of learning how to run an entire business through that entrepreneur class. Like we talked about the JROTC program, and that's moving forward. One thing, depending on who we end up hiring for the alternative ed director, if that's somebody that I think has that ability, they may end up taking over and being kind of one of our contact people on the dual ed credits. I want that alternative ed to be really a focus on alternative ed across the board, not just kids that are struggling or falling behind, but also those accelerated kids as well. Any questions on that area? Okay. Develop activities budget, excuse me. Looking long-term, so this is one that we've really been derailed by COVID, and I talked about that a little bit earlier. We don't have gate, we don't have concessions, those type of things, but we do have travel, we do have officials, we do have meals, extra costs, those type of things. So I've actually asked Mike to work with other area similar size school districts just to see what their ongoing budget needs are for their activities programs. You know, so we're adding soccer programs next year. Well, soccer is a very expensive sport when it comes to school budgets because of the travel. So we'll go up to Flathead at least once a year. So you're looking at hotels, you're looking at mileage, those type of things. So we're going to work with him to try and set that budget based on what people have had in the past, similar size. You know, we've got Laurel here tonight for basketball. What is Laurel spending on their activities? So we're working on that, but it's really impossible to know what we're going to bring in. You know, hopefully our community gets behind our activities and they come. You know, people that don't have kids in the school, which right now we're not allowing, but in the future we hope when we play Laurel that gym's packed and we got 2,500 people in there and they're all paying their gate, they're all buying a soda, they're all buying a candy bar or a hot dog. We are developing great relationships as far as getting in the mix to host MHSA postseason events. We will be hosting the first ever Montana Girls Wrestling State Championship here at Lockwood. Pretty exciting, you know, brand new facility and a brand new sport for the state of Montana, fairly historic. And just found out today that we are officially going to share the Eastern A Divisional basketball with the Metra. So I believe there'll be 8 games played at Lockwood and 8 games played at the Metra. So 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, each day on Friday and Saturday. So that'll be great for us to get in the mix with MHSA, because once they know that we can host and that we've got a community that's supportive of those type of things, you get on that list and you host on a regular basis. And I think we've got the facilities here that people are going to want to come here. We have the bonus of being close to Billings, so there's lots of places to eat or shop when their games aren't going on. So I think we're going to be probably one of the most appealing places to have tournaments in the state. Any questions on those? All right. And the last one is to continue to work on the school community clinic partnership. And all I can really say in a public meeting is that the work on this is continuing. Any other questions on our goals progress for the year? I know that was a lot.
All right, we are going to recess and move down to the community room to go into executive session and complete our task for the night. Thank you all for coming. You can hang around if you want. We'll come back and we have to approve the minutes. That's all we will do.